Hey guys, Timter here with my review of February's Humble Choice bundle. When I first saw this bundle, I was a little bit disappointed, but after spending some more time thinking about the games and playing them, I think this is one of the stronger bundles that they have released in the past few months. I played all the games for at least 30 minutes, and at maximum 1 hour, in order to form my impressions for this video. I'm going to go over the games in the order in which they were presented in the bundle, and at the end, I'm going to also share a few thoughts on the bundle overall. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First up, Outward. A challenging and niche open-world survival RPG, this one won't be for everybody. A huge part of the game is the survival mechanics. You have to maintain your food, thirst, temperature, and even manage diseases. This game also lacks a manual save system, meaning you can't save scum, and you also can't see where your location is on the map, so you have to navigate using landmarks and memory. The game starts with your character getting shipwrecked off the coast of their home city, and now because you lost all your treasure, you can't pay off your blood debt. You have 5 days to pay it off through paying 150 silver coins or helping out the townsfolk, or you'll lose your house. I started out by walking down a beach because somebody told me they have a stash near a shipwreck. I thought I was really smart because I managed to get a favor from a townsman by helping him survive by giving him a potion to save his life after he was attacked by some giant shrimp that shoot electricity. However, then I got promptly owned by some cave trolls, knocking me out for a few days. Since I already used a few days of sleep to heal, this meant I had wasted a potion, and my house was being used as a barracks by the local town guard because I didn't turn in my favor in time. Newly homeless, I decided to make my way to another cave to try and retrieve some mushrooms for somebody in town, only to ineffectively whack at a few trolls, killing some but lacking enough healing to delve further into the depths. I slumped my way back to town and ended my session by spending the night sleeping next to the town chickens, too poor to even rent a place for the night. I found this game pretty fun, and I will be definitely coming back to play more of it, maybe even give a review. The combat felt very Dark Souls-esque to me, with taking hits being extremely punishing, and maneuvering to exploit the enemy's weak spots, and protecting your own being very important. As I mentioned at the start, this game will be divisive, with the punishing survival and realism elements creating a steeper learning curve that will probably be a turnoff to some who are used to the conveniences and traditionally common assistive elements of modern RPGs, like quest markers. Regardless, this is a decent first game for the bundle, and it also comes with the Sororborans DLC, I'm trying to pronounce that right, which is a nice add. You know, it's nice to have some DLC when you get a game. The next game on the list is Valkyria Chronicles 4 Complete Edition, a tactical, turn-based strategy RPG. Think XCOM, but with tanks, over-the-shoulder aiming and manual movement, and a lot of anime. You take control of E-Squad, fighting for the Federation, in basically an alternate history of World War II. The Federation is basically a stand-in for the Allies or NATO, and the Imperials are basically a mashup of the Nazis and the Soviet Union. The plot is, well, very anime.
We're not fighting to die, we're fighting to live. Alright, I get it. Power of the heart, blah blah blah.
I had trouble getting into the game at first because it was very dialogue heavy. I think I spent 20 of the first 30 minutes playing in either tutorials or dialogue, and this could have been vastly improved if they had just tidied up the dialogue a bit and got what they wanted to say out faster, without me having to spam click through the dialogue as much. The first game in the series released on the PlayStation in 2008, and subsequent games until this one originally released on the PlayStation Portable. You can definitely see the traces of the designs needed for those consoles still lingering here, and it hurts the game in my opinion. For example, the map that you use to select your units doesn't really help in any way, and it kind of just takes you out of the action and slows the game down, especially when you look at the ability to switch between soldiers on the fly in XCOM. I didn't really enjoy this game as much. It's not a bad game, but the whole time I was just thinking, XCOM is so much better, why am I not playing XCOM? And I can see why some people like this game, but it's just not for me. I think out of all the mainline games, this game is probably going to be the most inaccessible to newcomers because of these factors. However, that doesn't mean it's a bad addition to the bundle. There are a lot of people who enjoy this franchise and probably have memories and nostalgia for playing it on the PSP. And for those people, they'll definitely enjoy this game and it'll definitely add value for them to the bundle. Endless Space 2 Digital Deluxe Edition is a 4X sci-fi space strategy game. 4X being explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Set in a galaxy once colonized by a godlike precursor race known as the Endless, all that is left as their civilization are relics and the ubiquitous dust a versatile, near magical nanobot material which is now used as currency. You take control of one of the 12 races, each with their own storylines, spaceships, heroes, and variation on the standard gameplay. The gameplay is very similar to what you'll see in other 4X games. You have to conduct diplomacy with other races or empires, you have to develop your economy, develop your planets, maintain your military, and expand your borders. Securing special resources grants you certain boons, and conducting research allows you to stay ahead of the game by improving your economy and military. I am a big sci-fi fan, as you might tell from watching some of my book reviews and other videos, so I was really hoping to like this game. I have not played Endless Space 1 yet, but I consider myself a moderate fan of the 4X genre. It's not my go-to genre, but I've had great fun in games like Civ 5 and 6 and Stellaris, the latter being probably the most similar thematically to this game. My first impressions of this game were very good, although with the amount of time I was able to play, I was really still in the tutorial. I tend to find with 4X games, you really need to play for like 10 hours until you really start to get a hang of things and understand the game. Typically, there's a lot you need to balance and be aware of that you just don't understand on the first playthrough. I really did like the world building for the faction I chose, and the intro cutscene really set the mood for the totalitarian, imperialistic faction that I was playing. And the flavor text for the quests, technologies, and planets is really well written. After playing the game a lot, you ignore it, but on the first playthrough, I personally enjoy reading it and learning more about the world. I also thought that the way the game handled battles is really cool. It's really nice to be able to see your ships fighting in this kind of cinematic view. It's something that a lot of other 4X games don't have, so I appreciated that. I think if you like 4X games, it's easily worth getting the bundle for this game. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I'll expect to be returning to this one for many hours. Moving Out is an amazing little couch co-op physics-based game where you and your buddies have to work together to move all the required objects out into the moving van, trying to do it as fast as possible. After completing a mission for the first time, you unlock bonus objectives that add more challenge, like not being able to break any windows, or having to put some objects that were not specifically listed into the van. I loved playing this game, even though I didn't get a chance to play it with friends. It is a bit harder solo, because you can't move heavy objects as easily, and you have less hands to do the work, but it's still fun. I know that I will have a great time when I do get to crack a few beers and play this with my friends. The game just oozes charm, silliness, and it has a great graphical style that is just so pleasing to look at. It was published by the same people who made Overcooked and Overcooked 2, so you can kind of see the family resemblance in the games here. I was expecting this game to be good, and I wasn't disappointed. Honestly, I think even if you weren't interested in anything else in the bundle, this might still be able to sell it to you. I almost forgot to mention, this game is local co-op only, so you will have to have your friend in person to play it, which I think is a little bit unfortunate because it's hard to really get people with many controllers in one place nowadays. Trine 4: The Nightmare Prince is a 2D action platform puzzler set in a whimsical fantasy world. You or your friends take control of 3 different heroes, all with different abilities and unlocks that will help them beat enemies and solve puzzles. This game can be played both in online or local co-op, so I can personally see this as a great game to play with a friend or significant other. Personally, I'm not a big fan of puzzle games, but if you are, this game will definitely sell the bundle for you. Trine is a pretty well-established franchise at this point, with the first and second games having overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Despite the third game not meeting expectations, it seems like the consensus on this game is that it is a modest return to form for the franchise. Personally, what captured me most was the absolutely stunning visual style of the game. It is just beautiful. It feels like a Disney film or fairy tale come to life. From what I was able to play, the way that the 3 heroes' abilities interacted and synergized with each other was neat, and I imagine trying to figure out some hard puzzles with your friends would be a fun time. Some of the early combat seemed very bland, just mashing buttons with 2 of the characters, but this early boss fight against a corrupted knight was fun, so I'd imagine it gets better later in the game. Even though I'm not a big puzzle guy, I still had fun playing this game for the time I did, and honestly, I think I will go back and do a full playthrough, if just for the amazing art. Although the puzzle solving gameplay was also more fun than I expected. The Wild 8 is definitely one of the low points on this bundle. It's a casual, open-world survival game set in Alaska after a plane crashed, and based on where I got to in the introduction, some sort of apocalypse happened. The game has you crafting supplies, managing your food, health, and cold, and exploring abandoned bunkers and bases. You can play single player or an online co-op, but I stuck to single player for this. It wasn't necessarily bad, it was just meh. I got into the game, it barely gave me any instructions on how to play the game as a new player, so I kind of just wandered following the vague quest line. The difficulty's all over the place. I don't want games to hold my hand, but it is very odd getting this few instructions on what to do. I didn't even realize I could collect wood and ore by punching trees, which is very realistic, I guess, until I tried it out of the blue. I had assumed that I would need to craft an axe or a pick, and I was wondering when the game was going to teach me how to do this. Also, you can only carry 8 items plus what items you have equipped, which is extremely annoying and bad for quality of life, especially in a game that has looting mechanics like this. If I'm struggling with inventory management 10 minutes into a game, something is wrong. Eventually, following the second mission in the game, I followed some power lines to an abandoned base. Up until this point, nothing was challenging me in the game. I could just run away from the wolves because their pathing was bad and they're too slow to follow. Food was easy to find, and cold can just be remedied by building a fire. So I was just exploring this base, and the exploration is somewhat good in this game, especially when you're going into the bunkers. But then suddenly when exploring, I'm jumped by a freaking werewolf that I basically can't fight or run away from. It took me from 100 to 30 HP in 2 shots that came right at one after the other, basically instantly. The sudden spike in difficulty and loss of my crappy items and overly tedious distance from my respawn point made me lose my last shred of patience for this game, and I rage quit then and there. Honestly, I think Caden Black on Steam reviews summed it up pretty well. I wanted to enjoy it, but it just ends up feeling tedious. Other survival games just seem to do things better. I fully agree. I just don't see why you should play this game over games like The Long Dark, Subnautica, or Don't Starve. Also, numerous people on Steam are saying that this game was abandoned by the devs so they could work on another game, so don't expect there to be any new content or improvements, it looks like. This is definitely a weaker game on the bundle, and one which I'm probably going to be uninstalling as soon as I finish this video. Train Station Renovation is a truly, unfortunate game for this bundle. The game has you taking control of Renovation Company to clean up and repair train stations. It's one of those games that has you doing a lot of busy work and different tasks. It's very similar to Viscera Cleanup Detail. I was really having fun with this game, and I could see myself listening to YouTube, Twitch, or podcasts while just playing it in the background. Being a fan of simulator type games, this is something that I would like to play just to relax. However, there's something very wrong with this game's optimization. After playing it for about 10 to 15 minutes, I started getting consistent frame rate drops to about 10 to 20 FPS, and as I played the game longer, certain areas of the map became outright unplayable at a consistent 10 to 20 FPS. And it isn't an issue with my PC. I have a decently powerful computer, specs will be in the description, and taking a look at the Steam reviews, it seems like other people are having this issue as well. I personally am fine with getting this game, because when it's fixed, I'm sure I'm going to still enjoy it. But I can't recommend this game or say it is good that it's in the bundle in its current state. People shouldn't have to put up with a broken game being in their bundle. It's just disappointing, and to be honest, it's kind of unacceptable that Humble didn't screen this game and actually put it in their bundle in its broken state. Valfaris is a heavy metal style 2D action platformer, and this is going to be a pretty divisive game because you being able to tolerate heavy metal is somewhat of a prerequisite for the game, being the main theme and all. Personally, I like metal, so I was jamming out hard while I was playing this game. The music is awesome, guys. But like I said, you know, metal's not necessarily the most popular genre, so if you don't like it, you might not like this game. I know I've said this a lot in this video already when referencing other games, but the art style of this game also really stuck out to me. It captures that heavy metal album cover style really well with its twisted, grotesque enemies, an abundance of veiny, viney tendrils everywhere, tons of gore, and, you know, very unique enemy designs. Best of all, it manages to do this without falling into the trap of being edgy. It's all played quite over the top and self-aware. I mean, look at the animation when you unlock a new weapon. This game was pretty challenging for me, which I appreciate. Granted, by this point in the day, I had already had to learn the control schemes for 7 other games, and I hadn't played a 2D platformer in a hot minute. The combat has you switching between your primary gun, shield, melee, and your special weapon. Your shield and special weapon both consume energy, which is generated by melee attacking with your sword. So there's some good resource management going on here, with you having to dip into melee range to regain those abilities and spicing up combat. This game definitely isn't for everyone, but it's definitely a good addition to the bundle, and I'm looking forward to come back and beating it. Werewolf the Apocalypse: Heart of the Forest is a visual novel horror game based on the tabletop role-playing game Werewolf the Apocalypse. Playing as Maya, an American of Polish descent, you go to your ancestral home of, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this, I'll just put it on screen, to discover your family history and the reason she has recurring dreams of the ancient forest. This type of game is not for me. I'm not a big fan of visual novels, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, as I'm going to be pretty biased. But while I was playing it, I do say that I like the art and the sound design, both of which really helped me get in the mood of the story. The writing that I was able to see was also pretty decent, so it has that going for it. The game has good reviews on Steam, so if you're into visual novels and or the werewolf games, this is probably something that you would really like. Lovecraft's Untold Stories is an action roguelike game based on the Lovecraftian mythos. I wasn't able to get very far in the game because of the time I let myself spend on it, and these roguelike games typically have a very long progression system, but I can see that there's a good amount of depth and replayability here. The long-term progression mechanics seem to be focused around learning more about the Lovecraftian gods in order to reduce your sanity loss to them, and needing to do this by playing the different characters' stories. The only issue I really had was that the game seems to rely a little bit more on exploration than I would like. I prefer roguelikes that focus more on action, like The Binding of Isaac, rather than exploration. When playing this game, usually you only have a fight every 3 to 4 rooms or so. On the other hand, in Binding of Isaac, you'll have a fight every single room, and it's much more interesting and action-packed. I liked the pixel art style, as well as the flavor text for items and interactables, which I thought fit the Lovecraftian theme very well. I recently read some of his books, so I could tell that they've put a lot of work into making it very true to the original. I also liked how punishing some of the interactables could be. It really forces you to remember what they do and to be careful for next time, and also just kind of gives you a more anxious feeling when exploring. You never know when you're going to click on something expecting a boon only to instantly die. I think if you like roguelikes, this is a pretty average game and you'll have some fun here. I will definitely come back and play this game a little bit, but it's definitely not one of the highest points of the bundle. Iris and the Giant is a deck-building roguelike game set in the imagination of Iris, the main character. It's a Greek mythology-inspired imaginative world, and I thought it was pretty interesting in that regard. As you progress through each floor, you collect collectibles, upgrades, and things that will help you on your next playthrough. The different cards you use target different layers of the horde, and have different effects that you will have to use optimally in order to ensure that you don't run out or are lacking a crucial card in a tough spot. The monsters you face also have different abilities that progressively get more challenging throughout the game, like being able to steal cards from your deck or reducing your max HP if they hit you. Honestly, this game is a solid average for me because I'm not really into deck building games at all, so maybe I am a little bit biased. I really like the art style, but I didn't really care much for the story, which I completely skipped. I had fun playing it, but I can't say I'm really inspired to come back to it once this review is over. If you like deck building games, this might be for you though. I'm willing to admit that it might just be my lack of passion for the genre. Boomerang Fu is a couch co-op physics party game where you use boomerangs to kill your enemies in 3 different modes with up to 6 players or bots. I enjoyed this game far more than I expected to. The art style is cute and charming, the maps are very well done, and the combat is fun, simple, and fast-paced. You can play in free-for-all, teams, or a mode where you have to hold onto a special boomerang for a certain amount of time to win. In every mode, the first player or team to reach the required amount of round wins the match. As the match progresses, you can unlock numerous different upgrades to make your boomerang stronger by picking up these little upgrade books. The maps also have ways for you to kill your enemies using the environment or through traps. While this is a co-op game, I still had a lot of fun playing this in single player against bots. The only thing holding this game back in my opinion is the lack of multiplayer. In this day and age, it can be quite hard to get 5 of your friends together in person, all with controllers, so being able to join in from a computer remotely would really help maximize this game's potential. I still think this is a really good small game for the bundle, and if you manage to get a few friends together to play it, you'll have a really fun time. The DRM free game for the month is Co-Open, a charming little indie title about the magic of being a little kid able to explore. Your grandmother takes you to a grocery store and tells you to pick up some things and then check out, but the intro heavily hints that exploring is a good thing to do. When I first played, I picked up some things, checked out, and ended the game because I didn't really understand. But after sneaking around and restarting for a second run, I discovered the exploratory aspect of the game. The style is simple but charming, and the exploration is pretty decent, letting you figure out things and learn for yourself. The only little thing that is annoying is that your progress doesn't save, however, but the tasks you've completed for people does. So you could just jump back in and not redo the old tasks because they've already saved. It's a little bit confusing, but if you play the game, you'll understand. You can't just quit in the middle of a task, however, and that's the annoying part. I also wish that the text was more skippable, or at least condensed a little bit more, so I didn't have to spam the next button to get through dialogue. I found myself playing this one almost for the full hour I allotted each game, so needless to say, I think it was pretty good. Phew, wow guys, we made it through all 13 of those games. I think it's about time to wrap this up with my general thoughts and conclusions, but before I go into that, I'd just like to remind you to leave a like, favorite, or subscribe if you found this video helpful. It really helps me out. Anyway, so in my opinion, this bundle is very strong. Probably one of the better ones that has come out recently. I find that bundles that tend to flop are the ones that don't have something in there for everybody. Of course, it's fine to have your Halloween themed bundle in October, and maybe the games there are more oriented towards horror fans, but generally, I think it's better not to hyper-focus a bundle on one genre or style of game. And this bundle does a great job of diversifying the lineup. You have several survival games with The Wild 8 and Outward, which is also an RPG, some strategy games with Endless Space 2 and Valkyria Chronicles, a simulator-esque game with Train Station Renovator, a visual novel with the Werewolf game, 2 roguelikes, 2 2D platformers, one is a puzzle game as well, and if all else fails, you have the party games with both Moving Out and Boomerang Fu that pretty much everyone can enjoy to some extent. I feel like no matter what plan you have, for $20 or less, this bundle will give everyone something they want at a steal of a price. Every bundle has its misses, excluding genre or preference. The only ones that I can say are an issue for me are The Wild 8, just for being boring and having a poor new player experience, and Train Station Renovation because of its optimization issues. I would say that the first 5 games on the list are pretty strong headliners. They all come from pretty established franchises and will have some people wanting them, even if some of them are not really preferred for others. Like I said before, even if you aren't big into RPGs or strategy games, as the first 3 games align to, Moving Out really comes in clutch here, adding something that has good value to most people. The only thing I would change about the headliners is that I would put Endless Space 2 first. Firstly, because I think it is a more recognizable game than Outward, and secondly, at a glance, Outward has a very old school and janky vibe to it that might turn some people off. That wraps up my thoughts on this bundle. I hope this helps you make your decision on whether you want to buy this one or not. If you've already made that decision, let me know in the comments, and tell me why you did or did not want to get the bundle. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Timtra out.